Alright, this is, I think, going to be a real hot button week for me. Lots to cover, lots of things going on, so I've been watching the Feb 6th Vegeta rally. Now, according to Reuters, it wasn't that big of a deal. Not as many people came out as they were anticipating and stuff like that. So it was just your, usual, anti-immigration, protest throughout entire of Europe. It's like, technically, this is a history maker here. This is probably the largest anti-immigration protest in world history. Maybe not necessarily in numbers, but definitely considering it spread an entire continent, from Dublin all the way down to everywhere, which is down to Australia, 2 continents. It was in Australia. I don't think anything happened here in Canada, but anyway, this is going to be a bit of a dark one, because I watched the footage and stuff like that, and a few speeches and everything like that, and just really trying to get the rhetoric of what was going on, who was doing what, who was beating who over the head, that type of thing. But there was a few things that I've noticed that I think are really cause for concern. And hopefully I can remember all the information I wanted to talk on this one. And again, I'm not telling anybody to go do anything stupid or like that, but you are going to have to brace for impact, because if you haven't realized, this is the Crusader cry. This is what it looks like in the modern age. This is the rally cry. Something I said, and you'll always hear maybe the reference, I guess, best I'll just refer to Europe during the Third Crusade, which was, the Richard the Lionheart one, where Europe was pretty much embroiled in difference and in battle, stuff like that. And before the Crusade, the Saracens never thought the Crusaders could unite, because they were so, divided over everything that there was no way they could unify. But there was the one man that kind of got things going, Richard the Lionheart, right? King Richard. And the thing about that is, that's what this Vegeta rally kind of represents. Now, most people have no clue that are in the Vegeta rally that realize what it is. Like, they know what they're protesting against, but they don't truly know why. And I know this because I hear them when I listen to them speak and stuff like that. You can yell racist, bigot all you want. I mean, I'm looking at this as just a man passing through time, right? And one of the things I'm noticing is that they don't realize that, yes, they're against Islamic Jihad, they're against Sharia law, they're against the migrant invasion, they're against the rape culture, they're against all these things, these bad things. And I'm not saying all migrants are bad. I know I got to keep restating that, because I know it's not all migrants. But what they keep failing to focus on is that it is a crusade. Jihad is a crusade, like it is a part of the crusade. And as soon as and I think the rally cry that just went on has been loud enough that every kind of, whether it's the BBC or whatever, it's the reason why it is so scary to the world elites is that it's not being covered. Isn't over here in Canada, nobody knows what's going on. It just happens to be Super Bowl Sunday right now. I don't really follow it, but whatever, yeah, not a hint of it on the news. The biggest anti-immigration, basically, it's the rally cry, not the battle cry yet, but it's the rally cry, not news on Western media. But however, the satellite channels of these, leftist medias are trying to do damage control. They're trying to get out ahead, but they're not going to be able to. It's too late for that. In other words, the Crusaders have just united. They don't realize this yet, I'm sure, but they have just united. And how they've united is basically how fast and organized it was, really, in a very short amount of time. We're talking only a few weeks. Really, only a few weeks. Yes, Vegeta's been around for a year and a bit, and stuff like that, and it might be a new group in a year's time, who knows. But the thing is, what people don't understand is how these groups, just because they change names, the ideology just manifests into a new name. So, they don't realize that. For example, the EDL, for example, which is still around, is just manifested into Vegeta. That's it's the same message just being carried over, right? So the thing you have to understand is what makes this a rally cry. What makes this oh my God, they've just united? Well, it's who's participating. Okay, we're going to start in France, because this is a big one. One of, I don't know if he was a general or what he was, but a very high up prominent guy got arrested over there at Calais. And remember, in Calais, they were not allowed to protest there. They did it anyway. There was only a couple hundred of them, but these are the most hardcore. But who was at the tip of the spear? Was it your neo-Nazis? No, it's actually worse. I mean, I'm probably sure there was probably some there. The rest would probably be mostly nationalists or ultra-nationalists. But at the tip of the spear, one of the guys getting arrested was French Foreign Legion, a commander or something like this. That's big. That's huge. This is the type of guy that's going to take 15 regular douchebag Frenchmen that don't know anything, an asshole from a duck, right? They're not going to know anything, and he's going to turn them into men in 5 minutes. That's the kind of guys you got to watch out for. Because those type of guys, and I'm not calling Frenchmen assholes, I'm part French myself, so I'm not calling myself an asshole, but you get the idea. They're going to take people who are, a bunch of, nothing. So when you have guys with those kinds of extraordinary skills, walking amongst the ranks of nationalists, and yeah, those nationalists all of a sudden now have guidance. They're going to have extreme guidance. I'm not saying this guy is, but if he's there in openness, there's probably tons of them there in secrecy. Just like you saw in Ukraine with these, the overthrow in Kiev there. It's the same mentality. These guys are coordinated. When they do decide to stage something, they're going to know exactly how to hit the law enforcement. They're going to know how to hit the military. These guys are going to be bastards because the problem people don't understand. Neo-Nazis don't follow Geneva Convention, and that type of thing, and neither do nationalists or ultra-nationalists or conservatives. They're gonna go rogue. The patriots, they're gonna go rogue on the government. The government is fully aware of this. This is why they're trying to play it down. They're trying to deflect it, but they're not doing it the right way. This is why this is going to lead to the full force clash. Now, I said not that long ago when I started doing the 10th Crusade updates. Good while ago. They're starting to get a little more common now because we're seeing it play out more. But I said you would see a uniting of crusaders. Basically I call them crusaders. You can call them neo-Nazis or racist bigots, whatever, patriots, or whatever you want to refer to. I don't care. But it's that mindset is now merged. And it's merged transcending borders. Meaning the people in the Netherlands agree with the people in Germany. The people in Germany agree with the people in France. The people in France agree with the Australians. The Australians agree with the British. The British agree with the Irish. Yeah, which is that's like fucking blows my mind right there. Speaking of Ireland, what happened there? They allowed the leftists to go around beating up on the nationalists, and the cops beat up on the nationalists. So now you're hardening the position of the nationalists, and this is kind of what happened everywhere. Over in Germany, what happened there? Well, it looked pretty peaceful in Germany for the most part. I think there were some areas that got out of control, but there was other protests going on as well. So, it's hard to say all what's going on there, but just keeping with that, Merkel must go is a common chant now, and I think that was probably the biggest of the rally. Australia, a lot of patriotic talk there. And in Netherlands, you had a lady talking about fighting and dying for the values, for the European values. So in other words, they're committed to the cause. Now, when you, I seem like a little old Irish lady, and I can only imagine what she said, and it warmed my heart. She went up to the police in Ireland there, and there people were yelling Nazis go or whatever, but I don't know who they were yelling at because the police were just whacking anybody, right? So were they yelling at the police? Were they yelling at the protesters? But all the protesters seem to be on the same side, so I don't know who are the nationalists or who are the whatever. And many, you have to understand, the average Pegida member is not a nationalist. No. There's only a handful of them that are nationalists. These are concerned citizens, so I get this. So I do throw the term neo-Nazi down in a literal term. When I throw it out there, yes, there are maybe out of, say, 10,000 guys, there's probably 100 of them that are neo-Nazis. Worldwide, there's probably maybe 50,000 neo-Nazis. You know what I mean? Like, just to put things in perspective. So when I use a term, I'm not using it derogatory, I'm using it literal. When I use the term nationalist, I'm using it literal. Now, there's millions of nationalists. Ultra-nationalists, maybe a few 100,000. If you go worldwide. That type of thing. Maybe it's bigger, it's hard to say. But you get the idea. But conservatives, we're talking millions and millions and millions. Concerned citizens, probably 500 million. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So you get the idea of where I'm going. And I do put these categories out there so you understand how, if I would liken it to the shape of a spear, you would look at the neo-Nazis at the tip of the spear, and at the very tip of that spear is going to be your ex-law enforcement, military, special forces guys, etc. Those are the guys at the very tip of the spear, including the neo-Nazis and whatever, because those are going to be the most hardcore, right? And at the shaft of the spear, that's going to be the thickest part of the shaft of the spear is going to be your ultra-nationalists. The rest of the shaft of the spear is going to be your nationalists. Now, forcing that spear is going to be your conservative or patriot, etc., or concerned citizen, wherever their values may lie. So that's how you have to look at that, right? So that's the picture I want to paint, so you can kind of think of it as a ranking system of how this is going to play out. And it's very predictable, and this is orchestrated right from the get-go. You had George Soros out there, bragging again about how this man, all he does is goes around wrecking economies. So he's talking about the migrant crisis, and how they're going to take advantage of it and stuff like that. It is to put in a police state. It is to enforce martial law. Yes, they will open fire. If you can't tell by the protests, yes, the police are going to open fire and kill their own citizenry. This is planned. I have no idea how much they have on Angela Merkel to make her go along with this, or she's just actually an evil person. This is playing out right in front of our eyes. Again, we'll just wait and see what happens. I'm usually pretty close on these things. I can't give you date and times, but I think as the weather gets warmer, we're going to see some pretty crazy stuff. Remember, we're only on the 7th of February. My 2016 prediction is only starting to get pretty much filled up, right? Not all of it, but we're in for some very crazy times. Now, you have to keep in mind something too with the radical ideology that's out there in the government. You have brainwashed people, brainwashed by, leftist utopians, being brainwashed by extremely greedy Zionist globalists who are basically taking advantage of like third wave feminism, progressivism, egalitarianism, all these things that are supposed to be really, really good, but they're really using, anybody that says anything against the migrants at all is a neo-Nazi. That's the only propaganda. So I'm going to agree with Sargon when he was on Millennial Woes. He says either you have to embrace Nazi or you have to rebrand Nazi. And I think Pegida, I think what he doesn't understand is that Nazi, neo-Nazi or Nazi or whatever, it has been rebranded several times. Sweden Democrats, I'm not calling them Nazis, but they're socialist fascists, right? So they're openly admitting that. But their policies, they're more left than right, but it's for their own, right? So Britain First, that would be, again, you would call them nationalist, socialist to a point. I don't know how socialist, but definitely nationalist. Pegida, nationalist. Almost all of them are nationalist. Golden Dawn, nationalist, socialist in policy, so to speak. And all the other ones that are out there, Front National, nationalist, socialist again. So all these groups, they state what they are, but they don't call themselves neo-Nazis. Most people are trying not to be lumped in with that. And one thing that it's either provocateurs out there flying the Nazi flags at the Pegida rallies and doing Zeke Hails, or really dumb people. Because if you want to bring people to Pegida, you cannot fly a Nazi flag. Even if that's what you stand for, you can't fly it. Why? Because you're trying to bring in the masses, right? You have to make it approachable. So there could be saboteurs in there doing it purposely. I wouldn't doubt that. Somebody even sent me a link saying that the attack in Sweden, in the mall there with the Viking raid that happened, so to speak, beating up people, that was actually undercover police trying to fear people, for, oh my god, the right-wingers are coming, But I don't think so. I think it would probably, at this state of the game, it would more likely encourage that than it would deter it. Even with the craziness that I'm learning about Sweden, yes, I get it. They're deeply religious with the progressivism instead of Christianity. They've gone full retard with progressivism, and I get that. I'm not calling all Swedes crazy, but the ones in charge definitely are. But the sentiment is there throughout European populations. They don't want any more migrants. Now, if you haven't heard, the response to, so to speak, to, I wouldn't say directly to the Pegida rally, but the response to 80% of Germans no longer, and the way, I love the way the left-wing media, or globalist media, however you want to refer to it, is that German people are questioning the migrant policies. They're not questioning. There's a fucking scream to the top of the lungs. Stop it. They're not going to stop. If you haven't figured it out, this is it's a multi-agenda thing. This is done on purpose. Think of the people coming in. This has been a plan to destroy sovereignty, to destroy. It sounds like paranoia, but think about it. They took out Gaddafi for several reasons. This is one of them. Gaddafi said you would have a flooding into Europe if if they overthrew him. Was he not wrong? Or was he not right? You know what I mean? Of course he was right. He knew this. And that's the goal. Turkey's getting ready to release a shitload more of migrants to flood into Europe again. I mean, listen to the Turkish government talking about, we'll rule Europe in XYZ amount of years and take their women, etc. This coming right out of their government. They don't hide it. That type of thing. So yeah, it's an invasion on purpose, but it's not for the reasons you think. Yes, destroying nationality is one, or national sovereignty is one. You can't have a one world government and one world currency by 2018 unless you can get people to not care about it and just go along with it. That's the whole point of mass immigration, is people aren't nationalistic to countries they're not originally from. They just go in and get whatever. Why do you think they're bribing the people to go there? Why do you think in Sweden they're basically not helping out their senior citizens and then giving all this aid? It's temporary bribe when they don't need. It's called useful idiots. These migrants are useful idiots. In fact, if you were a migrant, you're there. Now's the time to get out, because bad things are coming to Muslim people in the Western world in a very short amount of time in Europe. 3 to 5 years, you're not going to recognize Europe. It's going to be in rubble, fire, and ruin. I'm not a doom and gloom guy. It's just this is the recipe. This is what they want. If you listen to the globalists, they pretty much tell you they're destroying Europe and doing population replacement on purpose to undercut the labor, to get rid of unions. This is also part of Sweden. They're going to do that. They're going to get rid of the unions, undercut the labor, get rid of sovereign property rights, that type of thing. Drive up real estate. You want to live in a safe place in Sweden or Germany or something, you're going to have to live behind a gated community. So real estate is going to shoot up in these nice areas. They're going to shoot up a lot, and it's only going to be for the wealthy. Don't worry, those areas will be safe. They're going to have maximum security, but there's also a police state to take care of. So that's where your tax dollars are going to go. Never mind retirement and hospitals and stuff like that, and borders. No, it's going to go into the police state. Now, if you're not aware of also what's happened in Sweden, this is also telling you the beginning of the crusade. People are drawing the battle lines. Since November, and you'll have to check into this because I can't verify it. It's just I heard it off of, I believe it was Red Ice or Millennial Woes, I can't remember which one. But I think it was Henrik that was saying that since November, because of the migrant crisis, nearly 7,000 to 8,000 Swedish police have quit. I know police have been quitting in Germany. I don't know about France, but they've been quitting in the droves. Now, when you have that many people quit, I'll just paint you a little picture. Mexico, go back a couple of years. I mean, they still got that civil war going on in Mexico between the Knights Templar drug cartel and these vigilante groups. What happened is, like in almost all of the South Americas, which is run by communist dictators and cartels, right? Which Europe is going to become that way too. So will Canada here. So will the United States. It is going to kind of, I guess, Hunger Games is the best way to kind of view how the world. I think Donald Sutherland said that the Hunger Games was an allegory for what the world elites want to do to us. So, I mean, and he's a smart man, and he, that type of thing. And considering his connection to Tommy Douglas being his dad, and socialism and stuff like that, I think he was telling us something there. But anyway. So it's going to be ultimate class warfare, destroy the middle class. That's also what the migrant crisis is going to do. But the thing is the people that know this most are going to be law enforcement, even more than the military. The military is going to get it, but you have to understand. In Sweden, I talked about it in one of my Q&As, but I'm talking about it again, just to paint the picture of what's going on here. And it's just, you got to keep putting the dots together, connecting the dots, right? 7,000 to 8,000 police quit. Okay, is it because they can't handle the job stress? Well, I think that's part of it, probably, sure. They don't like hand grenades being shot at them. They don't like the idea that they're told not to arrest migrants for petty crime, like in Norway, places like that. So it's the same in Sweden. They're also, told to stand down, like in Germany, and allow these things to happen. So no self-respecting, protect and serve, true of the heart police officer can do this. It's against their moral conscience. They're going to have to quit. So these guys are quitting. But they're also quitting because something else happened in Sweden. If you're from Sweden, you can tell me what the protest was. I forget what it was. But there was a leftist protest, I guess, many moons ago. that got out of hand. They called in the military and they shot somebody and killed them. And from that point on, they put the doctrine that the military in Sweden cannot be used against its people. Well, roughly about the time that all the police officers started quitting, same time that they reversed that. So that means, yes, the authorization for live ammunition is now authorized to be used against the Swedish people when they step out. So which people, which class of people do you think they're going to be aiming at? The far left groups that are, refugees welcome? No, have you not noticed that the police don't crack down on them hard? Well, I mean a bit, but not by much. But they crack down on the right-wingers, or so-called right-wingers, which are really nationalist upper left, but the right-wingers. We'll use that as... Yes, so right now, what's happening, and yes, one thing you have to understand is the Crusader population, whatever branch they make up, whether they're nationalist, conservative, patriotic, just concerned citizen for their well-being of their country, identitarian, or nationalist, ultranationalist, or even neo-Nazi, or pick whatever verbiage you want to describe yourself, that's going to be a minority of Europe. That's just the way it is. The majority still is unfazed by the migrant crisis. The migrants aren't going into the upper class areas in Europe. That's why these people support it, because they don't have to feel it. These champagne liberals or whatever, and socialists that or whatever you want to call these freaks of nature, these progressives, they call for multiculturalism, but yet they don't. They're the biggest hypocrites because they don't indulge in it. These ones calling that, they don't go and marry outside into other ethnicities. They don't live in those communities. They don't share amongst those communities. But they will call you racist and bigot if you don't. So this is what people are realizing. It's like these people have no idea what's really going on. Now, some of them, yes, it's just gullibility. Now, I was listening to some of the clone victim speaking out and so that. And there's one girl, poor little blonde girl, cute little Wiener Schnitzels that she is, basically, they're asking her what happened on New Year's Eve, and she was talking about, how they stuck their fingers in her and everything like that. And I mean, of course, she, teared up a bit and stuff like that. And you could tell, like, she's traumatized, right? So they ask, how do you feel about the migrants? Well, she goes, well, anytime I see somebody that speaks a different language or is darker, I keep my distance. So yeah, of course, she's mentally broken. But you could tell she was probably one of these left-wing people in the beginning, thinking, "Oh, migrants welcome," not again, not realizing the danger. And of course, when they asked her at the end, how do you feel about the migrant policy now? It's like she didn't really want to answer, but she's like, I'm not so sure anymore. Again, and then she kind of chokes up a bit, and she sit there with her mother, but she was attacked with her mother that night. She goes, they weren't sticking their hands in her clothes to steal their wallets. I mean, they were groping her. And I don't know what the phrase is, but it's something along the lines that, I don't know which Xth it is or where in the Quran it says it, but it's along the lines that they get the right to terrorize non-believers. It's not considered a sin. So again, these are just some of the things that, arguing who's moderate, who's not is kind of, it's a different set of values. It's that simple. It's a different set of values. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not going to work for you. So that's getting back to the police and the French Foreign Legion guy. So now you've got all these police. Where are they going to go? Well, getting back to the thing in Mexico. I know I fly all over the place. It's just the way I am. So you'll have to deal with that. But in Mexico, when the Knights Templar drug cartel kingpin got elected, I can't remember his name. He promised the people all kinds of wonderful things, but he was twice as corrupt as the last guy. New boss worse than the old boss, that type of thing. And he started knocking off police officers that were trying to, bust the drug rings. Of course, when you have your guy running the town is the drug kingpin, it's probably bad job security to go after his men, right? So all of a sudden, these cops just start quitting in the droves, and then all of a sudden you start finding these masked, armed men, roughly about the same physique as the average police officer in Mexico, running around the hillsides knocking off drug dealers. And yeah, it's basically a civil war going on, and it's going to go on forever. But that's what I mean. When you see law enforcement or military quitting in large numbers, you know it's getting close. What's the spark going to be? I don't know. Well, I know Carnival I don't know when it starts in Germany there, but it's one of their big things, and they are getting so prepared. They're not going to make any money with this thing at all. The amount they're putting into the police, the amount they're going to be putting into security, I don't, because they can't afford another Cologne incident. But I really don't think that's what's going to happen. Why? Number one, when these big protests are out in the streets, those grooming gangs are nowhere to be seen. They're not going to come out and confront. Why? Well, there's 10,000 people there. You know, I mean, they will eventually. Yes, you will get. I'm still predicting England for the big Crusader clash. You'll probably see a lot of skirmishes in between there. Apparently, there was a migrant killed after Cologne, the Cologne incident in Germany. They believe it was right-wingers, so-called right-wingers, but they don't know. But however, it didn't quite make the news. It's just kind of floating out there in the back channels, right? And yes, there has been increase in tax, and there's definitely been increase in tax on mosques and schools and all this stuff. So it's coming to a head. It's a boiling point. But that said, these police and stuff like that, they're probably in the hills somewhere in the Alps training guys. There's no doubt about that. These guys aren't stupid. They know. Over there in England, I'm sure there's SAS guys out there training like crazy. You're going to know that there's going to be guys like in the Combat 18, for example. These guys are kind of all over Europe. They're in England. They're in Serbia. They're in all these places. And these guys are already trained for the Day of the Rope. You know what I'm saying? If you don't know what the Day of the Rope is, it's a neo-Nazi slogan for, you know, killing all the Jews, killing all everybody. It's a day of death. That's what it is. Now these guys are going to be just as, actually they're going to be worse than jihadists, because of how they're going to rally. Now, the jihadists are definitely dangerous. There's no doubt about that. We can see in Europe, or in Syria and throughout the Middle East, how dangerous these guys are. But they're no crusaders. They're no crusaders. And I'm not playing it up. I'm just telling you. There was one guy, I think he put it well. And now this guy was more Afrocentric. I listen to everybody, okay? So for me, I can have this conversation without really any anger towards anybody. I know some people, oh, you can't say those things, it's horrible, but just listen to it and then make sense of it for yourself. And what you believe, what you don't believe, that's up to you. But reality will teach you, like that poor girl and her mother on New Year's Eve in Germany. Reality and pain is a good teacher. It's just, they now know what reality is. It's not about wishful thinking or we think and we believe or we're all the same. No, there's differences. The world is a complex place. It's not black and white, it's a gray area. But I was listening to this Afrocentric guy, and he was saying along the lines of that, you know, where do the white people come from? Well, he says they're basically cave savages. They're Neanderthals. And he was going through some genetic differences between, you know, African Americans, or I guess Africans in general, and Caucasians, which Europe is pretty much all Caucasians. And there were some things that, you know, I was like, geez, you know, I can't refute that. One of the things he says, when the Caucasian children, he says they're more like wolves. He says white people are like wolves. He says when African children greet their parents, they greet with song and happy and jumping up and down and stuff like that, making noise and dancing and whatever. And I think that's kind of true. And you could see it. You know, you could see it. And then he says, but the white people, he says, they run and embrace their family members, kiss them, whatever. They're quiet, but they embrace each other just like wolves. You know, so the kids will kiss their parents or whatever and hug their parents. You know, like a wolf licking and putting a paw over the top of the cub, right? That type of thing. And there's something there. He says also too. He says the hand-eye coordination of the cave savage, the Neanderthal. I just, I really enjoyed it. It was like, okay, well, he's calling us a bunch of cave savages. I wear that as a badge of honor. I mean, I like Neanderthals. I think they were pretty interesting people to watch, right? Just watch them bashing things with clubs and spears and eating stuff and I don't know, ooga booga whack, whatever. But anyway, some of the traits, yes, we did get from Neanderthals, and one of the things he said was hand-eye coordination. Now, one thing I've noticed, and if you're African American, I'm not dissing you or like that, but I do notice a lot of African people that I've ever met tend to be clumsy. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I find they tend to be clumsy. Not like stupid, clumsy, tripping over their feet and everything, but I find they tend to be clumsy in their mannerisms. Maybe you noticed it, maybe you didn't, I don't know. I find Asians aren't as clumsy in their mannerisms. I know there's, a lot of people, you racist, but whatever. And I'm not saying white people aren't clumsy. One of my ex-girlfriends, I mean, if I didn't stop her, she would walk into a wall. She was just horrible, But I loved her dearly anyway. But she was just like that, she was clumsy. Well, there's a different type of clumsy. But one thing about the cave savages is our hand-eye coordination is good with spears. It's good with guns. It's good with particularly things that pertain to violence. There, I said it. We're a violent species. Uh, and something else I've said too, and I have to keep reiterating this because it is so important to understand what the Crusader mentality is going to snap to. Not what it is, but what it's going to snap to. And this is what nobody is ready for. And how violent it is going to turn. And this is why I call for peace now. This is why I say, don't get caught up in it because it's going to get brutal. And one of the things that I don't think that the so-called jihadists, whatever, realized from the last 9 crusades, or 8 crusades, technically the first one wasn't against, whatever, but you get the idea, is that when the Crusaders rally, or the cave savages, or whatever you want to refer to us, neo-Nazis, patriots, conservatives, national, whatever verbiage, the people that are disagreeing with the other people, we'll just leave it at that, right? When we do rally, we're very coordinated, and we coordinate extremely fast, but we don't do it in the sense of, let's drag it out. We do it in the sense, case in point, I watched a video tonight of a bunch of people in Egypt killing a dog. So they're jabbing it with a knife and beating it with a stick and doing all kinds of horrible things. And they finally kill this dog. I can tell you if it was a group of white men, it'd be dead within like 4 seconds max. And trust me, leave the fucking dogs alone. I like dogs, you know what I mean? But it was just to give you an idea where you see it with the jihadists. They like to toy with their prey, so to speak. But that's not what the cave savage does. No, the cave savage, we're hunter-killers. We're hunter-gatherers, sure. But by nature, we are hunter-killers. And when we're in that mode, and it will get to that mode, it's quick. And it's very supremacist in that sense. There's no way fucking around about it. It's just get it done. There's 8 of them. There's 8 of them. You got 3 bullets. Line them up and get them. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not calling for violence. I'm just saying this is what you're in for. And I'm also going to say something else that I know a lot of people will, that cave savage is, he just admitted that he's this, that, and the other thing. I'm not admitting anything. I'm just telling you from the psychology of a white person. And understanding violence. I understand violence, and I don't. Violence is nor good nor bad as how you use it. But I'm going to tell you something about, particularly the European mindset. Maybe not Europe, but the Europoid mindset, the Caucasian mindset. When we get into an anger, what you might even refer to as like a Viking berserker rage. It's a different type of thing. Now, myself, have I killed anything? I've never killed a person in my life, and I never want to. But I have hunted, okay? And I can tell you from my own experience, it goes pretty cold when you got to get the job done. You're not nervous. You're not really. I mean, yeah, the first time, you shoot a buck or something like that. Yeah, you're excited. But a lot of your excitement comes after. It's not during. During the moments up to pulling the trigger, it's get the job done. You're focused in. The whole world kind of falls away from you. And you're focused in on shooting the deer in the heart. That's all you're focused on. You get this kind of, how would I put it, like a purity of it, that it's got to be done this way. And when you get that kind of an efficiency, you get a clean kill. When you get a clean kill, it goes down, minimal amount of suffrage. It's as ethical as possible. You go butcher the deer, you take it home. And why would I put it like that? Well, it's very simple. You care about the deer. You appreciate the deer. You appreciate the deer because it's going to be sustenance to you. So you want to make sure it has a good death. You want to make sure it dies very, very quickly and as painlessly as possible. And that can only be achieved by good hand-eye coordination, skill, and determination, and an absolute follow-through. That's the only way it ever gets done. Now, that said, jihadists won't be deer that we care about. If you're not understanding that term right there, you've already understand what's coming next. That's where you get your Viking berserker rage right there. What's going to happen there is it'll be and you've heard me talk about it a while back, where I've said, and I know there's going to be a lot of people disagreeing with this, but I've said white people right now are the least racist they've ever been in history. period. And absolute proof of this is open borders. Absolute proof. Giving away their own cultures and stuff like that. And I'm not against anybody else's culture. You know, like, again, yes, I understand the migrant crisis would not be happening had we not invaded the Middle East for its resources. I get that. That, you know, there's enough blame to go around. I mean, we blame the migrants for coming in, and many of them, the majority of them, are not of no consequence, really, in the sense of you know, worrying about. You don't have to worry about most of them. But the thing is we also know about 6,000 to 8,000 jihadists have admitted to coming in to Europe. Now, I don't know how many here in Canada, but I also understand it's an ideology. ISIS is just a branding of an ideology. It's a 1,400-year-old conqueror's ideology that they're following, right? So I'm not saying it's all Muslims, but the ones that are, yeah, these are the ones we're going to have to worry about. Now, the thing you have to understand about the rally cry that we're seeing here is people are already starting to put out the verbiage. Remember the Spitfire and Hurricane pilots that fought for this island for the peace under the sun. You know, these are our rights. We're not going to give them up to a police state. We're not going to, you know, we'll fight and die to preserve our rights. That type of thing. Now, on the left, they're still in utopianistic. These are actually the people that are probably going to be, that are the most racist. Because they are actually, they're so afraid of being deemed a racist that their political correctness has turned their like self-hate into a national pastime, right? And I don't care who you are. If you hate yourself, you're going to be bad towards others. There's no doubt about that. Look at Angela Merkel, for example. She doesn't have any children. That explains a lot. I'm not saying everybody without children is bad. Myself, I don't have children, right? But I like children. But she's also a radical feminist supporter, etc., etc. It's the ideology: destroy the family, destroy the identity, destroy the culture, destroy children, destroy country, destroy manhood, destroy everything. And the best way they can do that is anything that is at odds with the nationalists or nationalism, which would be mass migration and multiculturalism. But they don't realize that mass migration coming in is absolutely toxic to their own belief system. But they're in a euphoria; they can't see it. Now, I've often referred to that joke that Richard Titus, the comedian, stand-up comedian, did about "Hi, I'm Whitey and I'm sorry." I think they've took it off YouTube, but there's so much sediment in there that when you watch this, you'll understand the punchline at the end. I don't think a lot of people get it. They just clap because they're supposed to. It's time to clap, right? But when he's out there, he's saying, okay, well, we did all these bad things, and it sounds like an anti-white rant at first. It really does. But the very last of it is not anti-white at all. In fact, it's like, this is exactly what I talk about. So it goes, we did this to the Indians, we had the Japanese internment camps, the Chinese, the railroad, the slavery, goes on. And he's like, at the end, he goes, okay, well, everybody in the audience, he goes, repeat after me. Hi, I'm Whitey and I'm sorry. And 1, 2, 3, hi, I'm Whitey and I'm sorry. So everybody's like clapping. He goes, yeah. And he goes, you hear that, everybody else? And you better accept our apology. See how fast we rally? And that's what we see on February 6th, how fast we rallied. So, like the Third Crusade, another Crusades, bang, new wave Christian Crusader. It doesn't look like Richard the Lionheart and the warrior Templar monks anymore. It's nationalists, neo-Nazis, conservatives, concerned citizens. Pick your verbiage, right? People that are opposing the ideology of mass immigration and multiculturalism to the point, and most of these people protesting are not even against multiculturalism. They're against Islamification. They're against mega mosques, that type of thing, which, you know, it's the money behind it tells you everything. This is all orchestrated. So the desired effect they want is a culture clash. Now, how they're going to pull it off, that's another story. That I haven't figured out how they're going to pull this off, because the world elites, you know, they're going to be hanging from the gallows. I'm not making any threats. It's just, yeah, the pitchfork revolution is going to be very... Muammar Gaddafi was the future of the world elites. I don't know how they think they're going to pull this off. The military isn't big enough. Even if you add up every military in the world and were to put them in Europe to defend Europe, their numbers would dwindle so fast. Think about it. You've got one Challenger tank coming out, okay? And there's a bunch of other guys there. And you have, I don't know, 150 guys attack that tank at once. Ambush it. when the guys are on lunch break, so to speak. Next thing you know, you've got a dead tank crew and a Challenger tank loaded to the tits running through London. Which neighborhoods is it going to knock down? Right, with a bunch of nationalists in it? Yeah. That said, what about all these SAS guys that have already fought the Taliban, that have already fought jihadists? Who are they really going to stay loyal to? Who are they really going to stay loyal to? I know some of the SAS end up as mercenaries all over the place, but who do you think they're really going to stay loyal to? To the government? I doubt that. Again, I'd be surprised if and we're talking Sweden, the most obedient, politically correct, leftist utopia on the planet, okay, which is now falling behind the United States for living quality, which is almost unheard of. Not in all areas, but in some areas. Give it a year, Sweden's going to be at the bottom of the barrel. Why? They can't afford what they're doing. They're not going. They put out the propaganda that they're going to kick out something like 800,000 migrants. How are they going to do this? They can't do it. None of these migrants are ever going to leave. Hence, why you're going to get your culture clash. Some of them will be peaceful, sure, but at the end of the day, no. I mean, I was listening to an Iranian American girl who moved from Iran a long time ago, and I forget where she was in the States, but she went into one place, and for a second she said, I really forgot I was in the United States. Like everybody was speaking like, different types of Arabic and stuff like that, and she was like, it scared her because she's like, we left there because, again, difference of ideology, right? That type of thing. So I think when the berserkers come out, the Crusaders, the Vikings, the Nazis, the SAS guys, the French Foreign Legion guys, these are going to be training up some pretty hardcore guerrilla warfare. It will not be pretty. And I can tell you, when the cave savages start to strike back, so to speak, the Europeans are masters of violence. They really are. They always have been. Even giving ISIS with the funding it has and stuff like that, it's definitely not the Second World War. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely not trench warfare of World War One. I don't think a lot of people get what kind of battles those were. I mean, even myself. I mean, I wasn't there. There's no way I could fully understand it. But understanding the concept of the magnitude of that. I mean, there's that. When it comes down to the showtime, there's that coldness that's going to come over these guys. The only thing you'll be able to describe it as is a berserker rage. That's it. Like, they'll just be brutal. It'll almost happen without emotion. It's that bad. Now, the PTSD that comes after that, well, that's different. But in the action, no, I don't think, there's going to be, there's going to be guys that are going to make examples of some of their captors or whatever, captives or whatever. I'm sure of that. But it's not going to be the same. It's going to be mass genocide. It's not going to be, okay, we're going to hold these guys for 3 weeks and negotiate to get these guys out, and then we're going to kill one a day and behead this guy and eat his heart out and do that. They're not going to do that. They're not going to toy with them. It's just round them up, dig the ditch, mow them down. That's it. That's what's going to happen, and it'll happen fast. It's going to happen really fast. There's no way the authorities are ready for this. And there's another problem. The police that are quitting. Think about it in Sweden right now. Out of 8,000 police, I don't know how many police there is throughout the entire of Sweden, but you're telling me that that's the guys that were brave enough to quit. Think about it. If 20% of the military, and there's never going to be a one world government to the point of absolute power, centralized power. There's never going to be a one. This is why they want to get a war going with Russia or China. And the longer they stave that off, the more desperate these neocons get, and Zionists or whatever. But the backlash from this is going to be unbelievable. The thing is again, the hellhounds. These are going to be your French Foreign Legion guys, your SAS guys, your special forces in the States, here in Canada, same thing. There's no rule of law, bad things happen. We know this, but we also know that when that snap point comes, again, if you're in Europe and you're Muslim or whatever, I'm not saying it to be mean to you. If I didn't care, I wouldn't say nothing. But it's going to be very dangerous for you. You better have a plan B to get out of there very, very quickly. If you're thinking of going to Europe, maybe perhaps you might want to consider something else. The welfare is not going to be worth it, because once you're in there and this battle starts taking place, the battles start taking places, you're not going to be able to get out. That's the thing. They'll kill you trying to leave. It's only a matter of time before the ports of entry are going to be attacked. There's just no doubt about that. Uh, but also understand, as soon as that starts, the crusade starts, all the jihadists are going to flood to Europe. They'll probably ditch Syria just to come and destroy Europe. That's oh yeah. But the thing is once the Crusaders take power, they're going to take it by violence. They're not going to take it through democratic vote. That's the other thing you have to understand. And when they do, what will probably happen is you're going to see the fall of governments, meaning the militaries are going to be at the control of the tip of the spear that I was talking about, the most radical of radicals. So God knows how that's going to work out. And we really don't know who's going to win this crusade. We don't know. That'll remain to be seen. Uh, but I don't think, if I had to put money on it, just thinking of that cave savage mentality that's going to come out, uh, understanding violence myself, I just don't think it's going to work out very well for the Middle East. It's not going to work out. Because once the Battle of Europe is done and they start picking up the pieces, it doesn't end there. From there, I would say the first country that would be unanimously agreed to wipe off the planet will be Israel, because of their connection to do that. The second country, believe it or not, might be the United States. That's where Europe is going to turn its why? Because that's where all the trouble came from in the first place. Is the U.S. Congress. So I'm not, I'm not bashing on my American brothers and sisters, but I'm like, if you're not with them, it becomes back to a George Bush speech, right? You're either with us or with the terrorists. Well, that's the way Europe's looking at you now. And you hear, I mean, I was listening to this German guy rant while he was driving down, I guess, on the Autobahn or whatever, and he pretty much spelled it out the same way. Yes, this is U.S. foreign policy. They did this to us. So, yeah. But that was part of the U.S. foreign policy, to create as much hatred for Israel and America as much as possible. Paul Craig Roberts has been talking about this. But how this ends up in the end, I don't know. The problem is when the countries start falling, they might even turn on each other. There might be border wars. There might be, who knows how bad it's going to get. It's not a matter of if anymore. It's just a matter of when. I'm still predicting 3 to 5 years for Europe, 8 to 10 years for Canada. The United States might be a little faster in the United States because they're a little more riled up than we are. Right here, we're still in utopianistic mentality here in Canada with Trudeau Mania 2.0. Basically went from Harper, basically a globalist economist, which I have my issues with globalism, running the country, to a openly admitted male feminist kindergarten teacher running our country here. God help us. God help us. Oh man. So when the jihad, the answer, what's going to be in Canada, what gets us into it is, I mean, in 4 years we're not going to recognize this country anyway. But basically, when the jihadists start rising up in Europe, they're going to rise up everywhere. So it's going to be a free-for-all globally. And when they do, I mean, this is what they're calling for. I'm listening to the jihadists. I'm listening to what they're saying. How much is propaganda? Who knows? How much is, disinformation? Who knows? But we can see what's going on. We can see the generalized ideology and the divide and conquer. We can see all that stuff going on. And we know it all comes from the George Soros groups and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, the Zionist factions. And, again, all the mass immigration is all pretty much, all the people screaming for opening up the borders of Europe are pretty much all Jewish Zionists. Mind you, Israel, they don't believe in multiculturalism at all, which is kind of funny considering they promote it so much, right? So people are starting to see what it's really about. And it's the biggest scam ever. But the human cost, so the accountability of the people on the progressive left, the law enforcement and military that will protect the system. I mean, there's not going to be Nuremberg trials for this one. At this one, it's just executions. Were you working for the government at the time or not? And that's what's going to happen. So really, the lines have just been drawn. The police throughout Europe are showing that, yes, they are willing to do violence against the Pegida members, which is basically the regular citizenry. So you're not allowed to speak out against and even as much as they're trying to censor it, it's not going to work. The more they censor it, the worse it's going to get. So I guess I'm babbling now, but these are just, I think this is a big, big connector. Again, I never call for violence, but I understand violence. I know it's about to happen. We human beings always tend to do the wrong thing before we do the right thing. I really don't know which way this is going to sway. Remember, Every jihadist in throughout Africa is heading towards Europe. Once it's their dream jihad. Busting up Middle Eastern countries is not. They can go back to that after, but they would love to destroy America, Europe, Canada, Australia. They can't wait to do that. They just can't wait to do that. It's their dream come true. Everything else would be secondary. So that means the numbers, the masses of numbers coming in. Again, you have to understand, the answer to Vegeta is another 9 million migrants in the next 3 years to Germany. This comes out. The German foreign minister, I'm watching him, a migration minister, one of them, he's talking now, like the guy's about to break into tears. He's like, because there's family unification. Yeah, so we're bringing in 1 million, but with family unification, you could be talking up to an extra 8 people, right? So it's like, oh, there's nothing we can do about this. Yeah, you change the policy. You have an emergency meeting, change the policy overnight, but Angela Merkel's not doing it. Yeah, very, very strange, right? So, yeah, the lines I think are clearly drawn now. Now you're either on this side or you're on that side. So, yeah. Anyway, just be safe. I think that's all I guess I could say. So, anyway, I'll leave it at that. So be good to yourselves, be good to others, always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. G'day, hi, and welcome. Alright, this is, I think, going to be a real hot button week for me. Lots to cover, lots of things going on. So I've been watching the Feb 6th Vegeta rally. Now, according to Reuters, it wasn't that big of a deal. Not as many people came out as they were anticipating and stuff like that. So it was just your, usual, anti-immigration, protest throughout entire of Europe. It's like, technically, this is a history maker here. This is probably the largest anti-immigration protest in world history. Maybe not necessarily in numbers, but definitely considering it spread an entire continent, from Dublin all the way down to everywhere, which is down to Australia, 2 continents. It was in Australia. I don't think anything happened here in Canada, but anyway, this is going to be a bit of a dark one, because I watched the footage and stuff like that, a few speeches and everything like that, and just really trying to get the rhetoric of what was going on, who was doing what, who was beating who over the head, that type of thing. But there was a few things that I've noticed that I think are really cause for concern. And hopefully I can remember all the information I wanted to talk on this one. And again, I'm not telling anybody to go do anything stupid or anything like that, but you are going to have to brace for impact, because if you haven't realized, this is the Crusader cry. This is what it looks like in the modern age. This is the rally cry. Something I said, and you'll always hear maybe the reference, I guess best I'll just refer to Europe during the Third Crusade, which was, the Richard the Lionheart one, where Europe was pretty much embroiled in difference in battle, stuff like that. And before the Crusade, the Saracens never thought the Crusaders could unite, because they were so, divided over everything that there was no way they could unify. But there was the one man that kind of got things going, Richard the Lionheart, right? King Richard. And the thing about that is, that's what this Vegeta rally kind of represents. Now, most people have no clue that are in the Vegeta rally that realize what it is. Like, they know what they're protesting against, but they don't truly know why. And I know this because I hear them, when I listen to them speak and stuff like that. You can yell racist, bigot, all you want. I mean, I'm looking at this as just a man passing through time, right? And one of the things I'm noticing is that they don't realize that, yes, that they're against Islamic Jihad, they're against Sharia law, they're against the migrant invasion, they're against the rape culture, they're against all these things, these bad things. And I'm not saying all migrants are bad. I know I got to keep, restating that, because I know it's not all migrants. But what they keep failing to focus on is that it is a crusade. Jihad is a crusade, it is a part of the crusade. And as soon as and I think the rally cry that just went on has been loud enough that every kind of, whether it's the BBC or whatever, it's the reason why it is so scary to the world elites is that it's not being covered. Over here in Canada, nobody knows what's going on. It just happens to be Super Bowl Sunday right now. I don't really follow it, but whatever, yeah, not a hint of it on the news. The biggest anti-immigration, basically, it's It's the rally cry, not the battle cry yet, but it's the rally cry. Not news on Western media. But however, the satellite channels of these, leftist medias are trying to do control, damage control. They're trying to get out ahead of it. They're not going to be able to. It's too late for that. In other words, the Crusaders have just united. They don't realize this yet, I'm sure, but they have just united. And how they've united is basically how fast and organized it was, really, in a very short amount of time. We're talking only a few weeks. Really, only a few weeks. Yes, Vegeta's been around for a year and a bit, and stuff like that, and it might, might be a new group in a year's time, who knows. But the thing is, what people don't understand is how these groups, just because they change names, the ideology just manifests into a new name. So, they don't realize that. For example, the EDL, for example, which is still around, is just manifested into Vegeta. That's it's the same message just being carried over, right? So the thing you have to understand is what makes this a rally cry. What makes this the, oh my God, they've just united? Well, it's who's participating. Okay, we're going to start in France because this is a big one. One of, I don't know if he was a general or what he was, but a very high up prominent guy got arrested over there at Calais. And remember, in Calais, they were not allowed to protest there. They did it anyway. And there was only a couple hundred of them, but these are the most hardcore. But who was at the tip of the spear? Was it your neo-Nazis? No, it's actually worse. I mean, I'm probably sure there was probably some there. The rest would probably be mostly nationalists or ultra-nationalists. But at the tip of the spear, one of the guys getting arrested was French Foreign Legion. A commander or something like this. That's big. That's huge. This is the type of guy that's going to take 15 regular douchebag Frenchmen that don't know anything, an asshole from a duck, right? They're not going to know anything, and he's going to turn them into men in 5 minutes. That's the kind of guys you got to watch out for. Because those type of guys, and I'm not calling Frenchmen assholes, I'm part French myself, so I'm not calling myself an asshole, but you get the idea. They're going to take people who are, a bunch of, nothing. So when you have guys with those kinds of extraordinary skills, walking amongst the ranks of nationalists, and yeah, those nationalists all of a sudden now have guidance. They're going to have extreme guidance. I'm not saying this guy is, but if he's there in openness, there's probably tons of them there in secrecy. Just like you saw in Ukraine with these, the overthrow in Kiev there. It's the same mentality. These guys are coordinated. When they do decide to stage something, they're going to know exactly how to hit the law enforcement. They're going to know how to hit the military. These guys are going to be bastards because the problem people don't understand. Neo-Nazis don't follow Geneva Convention, that type of thing, and neither do nationalists or ultra-nationalists or conservatives. They're gonna go rogue. The patriots, they're gonna go rogue on the government. The government is fully aware of this. This is why they're trying to play it down. They're trying to deflect it, but they're not doing it the right way. This is why this is going to lead to the full force clash. Now, I said not that long ago when I started doing the 10th Crusade updates. Good while ago. They're starting to get a little more common now because we're seeing it play out more. But I said you would see a uniting of crusaders. Basically I call them crusaders. You can call them neo-Nazis or racist bigots, whatever, patriots, or whatever you want to refer to. I don't care. But it's that mindset is now merged, and it's merged transcending borders. Meaning the people in the Netherlands agree with the people in Germany. The people in Germany agree with the people in France. The people in France agree with the Australians. The Australians agree with the British.